Good morning, ladies. So beautiful to be here. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we are kicking off our She Rises Sisterhood chats that are, I guess, an opportunity to get a glimpse into another woman's story, the goodness of God in their life, and glean some real tangible wisdom for your journey, because I think that's what we're here to do life well together. We're so much more powerful together than alone, and I'm so excited to introduce a beautiful soul sister onto our show today, who is a leader and influencer, a singer-songwriter, a worshipper, and just an amazing woman of God whose story just speaks to not only her personal courage, grit and resilience through both their highs and lows of life, but also God's faithfulness within her story. So I'm so excited to give a little bit of a platform and to share the table with her today. She's coming all the way from New Zealand, so that's super exciting.
Yeah.
That technology can just enable this beautiful connection from right around the world. So a little bit of context to this conversation. So I really believe passionately that in our stories we have the ability to make the unseen work of God in our lives visible and seen and tangible for other people to be drawn closer to His heart. So through this journey, we'll be discussing two main themes in our sisterhood conversations around how have you encountered the love of Jesus in your world, and then two, if your journey could teach us anything. I think the beauty of God's design, as I said before, is we're not intended to do this journey alone, and often God's design is that we hold keys for another woman's freedom or another person's freedom in our own sort of experiences. So I think creating a place for storytelling is really important. So my own story, I guess I would describe myself as a lover and seeker of truth and a receiver of grace. I had an encounter with Jesus for about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's radically changed my own world. So I can definitely sit here and testify to the love of God that has the ability to directly encounter you, pick you up from a mess of your own making, and take you to higher ground. So I'm so excited to create this platform to speak of the goodness of God and to bring other women into this space. So a big welcome, Roxi. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I've given you lots of an intro, but tell our women a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm an American girl. People don't really believe that. Especially since living in New Zealand, all these people are like, oh, I just thought you were a Māori. And I'm like, no. But my dad's from India, my mum's white. So I'm a half and half girl. Lived in Australia for 8 years, which is where I met beautiful Joanne. And I just want to honor you, Joe, for what you've been doing the last few years as well in your own life. Like, I can tell God's really just worked in you and you've been growing, and it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful that God allows us to stand on the sidelines of someone's life and, partner with them, walk with them. And I just want to honor you today for this beautiful platform that you're creating. It's awesome. And a bit more about me, I'm a district manager and independent consultant with Arvon, which is a health and wellness company. I'm a vegan girl. I believe in taking care of our planet. And I'm a lover of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I just love to worship Him. I love to sing. I love the Word of God. I love youth ministry, not just in the four walls of church, but I do a lot of mentoring outside of church as well, with just young people in my community. I've got a lot of passion, a lot of vision for what God's going to do in and through my life, even this year. And that's me, I guess, at the moment.
Amazing. So much breadth in that landscape. And just to touch on one thing, you said that you are a lover of Jesus and a lover of God's word, and I think you have a beautiful ability to break open God's word and just make it living and active in your life. You are bold and unashamed, and your ability to share God's word and his presence in your story has been such a blessing and really transformational in my journey. So I really honor you for that. So what is 5 words to describe you?
Oh, we did this last time. I would say resilient, tenacious, brave, hopefully kind and loving.
Yeah, amen. Love it. Definitely all the hallmarks of a woman for these times. So what sets your soul on fire?
Seeing people come into the kingdom of God, encountering his presence. That's one thing that, like, I've been a worship leader since I was like 15. So for me, like, watching people actually experience the presence and love of God, like, that's something that sets me alight. People finding their purpose, their identity, especially our youth, our rangatahi, when they find out who they are and they understand that they have purpose and value. And women, like, I really care about seeing women find their purpose and their value, because I think a lot of times in society women have been pushed down, and been made to fit in little boxes that people say they are. But I love when people just break out of the box and just show people who they really are without any hesitation. Because I think the society we live in, our Instagram world, we can try to make ourselves fit into these little places that we don't, into this little place inside of a screen that, like, we don't actually belong in. We belong outside of that. And that's something that sets me on fire, I guess.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think you're a real role model in that space and stepping into that authority even more. What are you most proud of in, I guess, your life, your ministry at the moment?
Probably in life is just, I've moved countries twice on my own, which is not easy. I moved a few cities within those countries as well. So I think just having that pioneer spirit, like, being fearless in some senses. There are days and I'm like, what is happening? But I think that's my proudest accomplishment. When I was young, I wanted to live in Australia, and at 24 years old, for me, I would have liked it to have happened when I was like 17. But the fact that I did do it, like, I've accomplished a lot of the dreams that I set forth in my life. There's still some that I'm waiting on, I think I mentioned it our last talk, but, I want to be a wife and a mum one day, and those things. So those are dreams that are still in there, but it's okay. I just choose to live a life where giving myself fully to where I am today. Within ministry, last year, or the year before last, sorry, it's confusing sometimes still that it's already 2020. In 2018, I moved over here to New Zealand to be a youth coordinator for a church. So I started a youth ministry from scratch, and it went all right, like, it wasn't, I don't know, it definitely had its struggles, but just the fact that I could do it and I didn't really have much of a team around me was phenomenal, I felt. And within worship, I just love, at the moment, I'm just assisting in our team. Like, I'm, one of the vocalists, and I help out our worship leader if she needs some help. So I guess with ministry, it's kind of like just being hands on deck. And I do youth ministry every Friday night. We have a youth ministry here in Whangarei, and most of our youth are unchurched. So they're like community kids, which is what I work with as well on the side. And it's not always easy mahi, which means work, but it's definitely challenging. Keeps you on your toes, and I don't know, I lean into God for strength for it, because even I would be honest, like last Friday night, I was like, Lord, I don't know if I'm cut out for this anymore. And then some of the young kids opened up about how they felt like they were welcomed into our space that we had on a Friday night. And so that just changes, like, when you look at what God's actually doing, it changes your own perspective sometimes. Because we can be in spaces where it's like, oh, I don't really want to do that today, or I don't feel like it. We can go by our feelings, but I choose to go by the call of God in my life instead. Not always, like, I'm definitely not perfect. But I try to lean more towards, what's this bigger picture actually? It's not about me today. It's about, you know, the youth that I'm working with. It's about their families, not even just them as individuals, but by them coming and them understanding that they belong somewhere, they're taking that into their family. They're taking that into their world. And it's so powerful and such a privilege and honor that God uses us in spaces like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much goodness in what you shared there. I love what you talked about choosing to see a higher perspective. And I think often that when you have that divine exchange where God's thought replaces your thoughts, nothing in the natural might have changed, but everything has changed because you have, I think, a different perspective of what you're knitted into. That absolutely is a cause and a commission greater than ourselves. And there's something so powerful when you see, I guess, God's breath of freedom break into someone's life. So what has been just an amazing moment of transformation that you've seen take place in one of your ministry spheres?
I feel like most of the transformations actually happen inside of me. Outside of me.
That's the truth, right?
Like even since being in New Zealand, because like I said, I'm a singer and I've been singing my whole life. And, I came from Hillsong Church, which is an incredible church. And worship there, everything's pretty much exact. And coming here, it's a little bit more raw, a little bit more, not like all over the shop, but it's not, I don't want to say perfect, but it's not as, I can't exactly describe it, but I remember I was learning Māori as well, like the native language of this land when I first moved here. I still need to work on it. I'm still learning. But I remember how frustrating it is to not understand or know how to say what you want to say. And there was moments when I was trying to get people, help people find a harmony or find a part. And then they would be like, I can't get it. And I would be like, but I remember God reminding me of how frustrating it was for me to learn kapa haka or learn Māori, and I can't expect people to be at a level that I am used to. And so I feel like it's been something inside of me that he's been working on, like, this, like learning how to capture the sound of this land, that it's different. Yeah, so I think that's more than anything, I feel like there's been transformations inside of me. And, like you might have a little situation with someone where you're like, they might have said something that's unkind and you can easily choose to hold on to that. But I feel like more than often, God has been like, okay, yeah, it's your right to hold on to that. But what's that going to do in the bigger picture? What's that going to do to my body? Because if we, I alluded to it, but if we constantly live with our eyes focused on a bigger picture, that everything we're a part of is so much bigger than ourselves, it helps. I don't always get it. I can honestly say that. But when I do get it, it really hits me hard inside, because God will be like, well, that's my body. Those are my people. Who are you to have a right to hang on to something? So I think forgiveness has been a big one this year. Well, in the last 12 months of my life, the last few years. Learning to really let go, though, not just say, oh yeah, forgive them, but it's like that true thing, like, well, I can look at them on a Sunday and give them a hug and smile. I had people that were saying that they were going to call immigration on me. I've had all kinds of situations that have been like in my face, and I've been like, Lord, what the heck? But then I remember, Jesus was criticized. Jesus, his best friend, turned his back on him. And even recently, I had one of my closest friends kind of in so little words say, the energy it takes to hang out with you is not the kind of energy I have at the moment. And I know it wasn't about me, it's actually about them, but it still hurt a lot. And even like a few weeks ago, we had a big meeting and they were, they were on the platform leading worship. They're not at my church, and even during that night, I was like, Lord, this still hurts. Like, she was like my soul sister. Like, she's like one of my closest friends. And I just, even in that moment, had to just keep letting it go. Then afterwards, she came up to me and we just hugged each other for ages. And it was the most beautiful moment. Like, had I still held things on, I wouldn't have been able to even have that moment together. And I think it's so important to just choose, even when it's not easy, to let things go. And yeah, no matter how right it is, because I think I'm quite a justice person. So if someone's like wronged me, or yeah, I don't know, I don't want to say they deserve justice, but sometimes inside I'm like, oh, well, that's not fair, Lord, like, come on. But you know what wasn't fair? Jesus hanging on a cross. And so it's like that constant reminder, well, fair doesn't even matter. It's just what is going on inside of my own heart, and what's that affecting. It doesn't just affect me, even though that's what we think and we believe at times. Everything that's going on in here affects everyone around us.
Yeah, true.
And so I think those are some of my biggest lessons in the last few years.
So what I hear really strongly coming through your sharing is a woman who knows how to run to her Father as her safe place. And I agree, it's that internal work that I think will sustain any public platform. Have you always felt the presence of God in your life, or has that been a journey of awakening and becoming to you?
I feel like ever since I was a young girl, I always knew him and I loved him. Yeah, I had some things happen when I was young, like went through some abuse and things, but I always knew he was safe. And I had, I remember some people saying like, oh, you're not called by God to blah, blah, blah. But I knew that that wasn't true. I knew what he had said about me. And like I love, it's Psalm 91 where it says, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High, will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And that's one of my favorite things, just being in that secret place with God, under his wings, like I think it's, yeah, even that in verse 4, he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. And it just goes on and on and on about God being our refuge and our strength. So for me, through abuse, through family issues, like God's always been my refuge. And I remember a couple of years ago, I almost had this vision in worship of different stages of my life where these massive wings were covering me. So it's those moments where God, reminds us that he's there. Like that's probably one of my favorite names of God is Emmanuel, that he's God with us, through high seasons, through low seasons, mountaintops, valleys, through the darkest of nights and the brightest of days. He promises that he's with us. He sits with us in pain, sits with us in joy. Yeah, so for me, I've always felt and known him. But sometimes you don't have that feeling, but I've always known regardless, because he's faithful to his word. I've always known that he is there. So, yeah.
Beautiful. God Emmanuel, it's such a powerful revelation, and thank you so much for what you've shared right now. If any woman listening needs some additional support and resources, I will attach this to this interview. So you spoke about resilience as one of your top five words to describe yourself, and I'm so interested in that space as women. You talked about as well, I guess, the cultural expectations around women, and in this age of social media, we get, I guess, so much exposure to people's highlight reels, but we don't often get the same level of, I guess, understanding of the seasons that are hidden and are hard, are common to us all. And I think it is grit and resilience and the ability to lift our eyes on our Saviour and something greater than ourselves, and obviously the divine exchange that happens in that moment. What have you learned most in your seasons of sort of hidden and hard?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just keep standing up, keep getting up and turning up. Like there's so much power in just choosing to turn up, even when you don't feel like it. I love in the Psalms, like over and over, David is like, King David was like, my soul, why are you downcast within me? Put your hope in God. And I remember there was a few seasons even in Sydney where I just felt like, what's the point? Like, why am I here? What are you doing, Lord? And you can easily live in those places, but I, for one, and there are people, unfortunately, like people go through those low places and they need to get the help they need for that. I understand that. But for me, I just was like, I'm not going to live there. I just chose to, speak to my soul and in those times. And so for me, like, that's my personal journey. I've spoken to my soul and just said, you're not going to live there. Yeah, that was hard. You can have a few minutes to, feel the feel that you need, go through the emotions that you need to. But for me, I don't allow those feelings to control the way I live and the way that I respond. And I think that's the thing, is response, learning how to respond, because I grew up in a very reactionary family where like something happens and boom, it's like a big explosion. Whereas as I've grown and sometimes when I speak to my family, I don't always respond still the way that I'd love to. But you can choose a response instead of hanging up or yelling and slamming a door. So I think it's just choosing new responses. Think about a situation beforehand. Okay, if I speak to so-and-so, it could get a little bit heated. How am I going to respond? Am I still going to speak with kindness, or am I going to blow up? And I think it's, knowing afresh who I am and whose I am, and that I'm an ambassador in every sphere of my life, whether that's behind closed doors or out on a platform doing worship, or on a social media platform, promoting my business. That, I don't know, for me, I want Jesus to be seen in all areas of my life, and I definitely do not have it right or perfect. None of us can. Only Jesus is perfect. And with social media, if something bothers me, I choose to just unfollow it. Or like lately, I've had a few people kind of attack what I'm doing right now, and I'm like, nah, and I block them, not out of meanness or spite, but it's like, well, I am a choice of I have the choice of what I allow in my gates, whether that's my eyes, my ears, in my mouth, what am I eating? And so I think it's our job as women to guard our gates, whether that's like, if there's something on Instagram that makes you feel crap about yourself, then most likely you should stop following it. Like if you need to fill yourself more with the word of God, so you know who you are. So on resilience, it's just getting up, turning up, keep getting up. Even in Ephesians 6, it says, it talks about the full armor of God, and it says, after having done all to stand. So you've done everything, but you stand back up. And I think it's in Proverbs as well, like a righteous person falls, but they get back up. And I think, but it's like you said a few minutes ago, lifting your eyes. That's a big thing to me, like lifting my eyes. Where does my help come? Well, it comes from him. I'm nothing without him. And I don't know, I have this like little revelation sometimes, like, we could have a mug. I'll just use my smoothie as an example. So like we could say, Lord, look at all this stuff going on in my, in my cup, in my life. Like this can represent our life. And it's all this, look at all this stuff, all the little bits that are all on the side. And it's like we can focus so much on what's in here. And he says, look up. There's so much more than what's inside of there. And that's something one day that I felt him say to me, look up from your cup. Like we can hold our little cups of tea and our coffee and be like the cup of our lives and be like, God, what is going on? But he's like, just look up. And then those little things won't be so big. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. I love that revelation, and that I think God doesn't promise to remove I think challenges from our lives, but I think he does promise to walk with us through them and to strengthen us. And I love that testimony about just the power of like looking up, obviously in a spiritual sense, and then what that does to our sort of heart and soul realm. And I think there is something quite powerful that happens often at the end of our own, in that action of surrender or really passionately seeking God, there's something that happens that his strength starts to replace or supersede our own, and that gives us the resilience to keep on going. So beautiful. So I was in Proverbs this morning reading so many beautiful sort of messages around a woman who walks in the path of wisdom, and I feel that you are an incredibly wise woman. There is wisdom that you have, wisdom and revelation that you've fought for in the secret place, and just your obedience to going on the journey of sort of ministry and education. If your journey could teach us anything, what are a few things you might be able to share today?
I think kind of like what I already alluded to, like just keep turning up, even when you don't feel like it, when you don't feel like you have a part to play, because that's something, even in the season I'm in right now, like God's been teaching me about how he just loves us unconditionally, and he's a God of extravagance, you know, like that we have our little bars that we set, but he always wants to do more than that. So keep the faith, you know, stay in the word. When you're feeling really low and you feel like you don't have the strength, well, you probably don't, because we're meant to lean into him for his strength.
Yeah.
He's our provider. I've seen that time and time and time again. In seasons where I didn't have a job, like even right now I'm not working. I've finally gotten a new job, and I'm excited to start that in the next month or so. But yeah, just keep turning up, keep leaning in, lean into the push, lean into the hard time. Don't run away from it, because you might find yourself back around that mountain again.
Yeah.
So learn whatever lesson it is. I'm not sure. Sometimes I feel like I've learned this lesson. Like, why are we here again? Then I realize, oh, okay, I didn't learn it all.
There's another layer.
Yeah, it's like an onion, really, when we're going through things, you know, when I've gone through counseling, everything's like an onion. Things unpeel. And at his time, like, we can go on these searches inside of ourselves trying to find all this junk, but it's like, well, actually let God bring things to the surface in his time. Look for gold in people, you know, look for that potential. I remember one time I found myself, it was a season where I kind of found myself being quite critical of people. And I remember God just challenged me every time I had a negative thought about someone to find something good. And it's still something I can't, like, I don't know, we all as humans, I think, make little quick snap judgments on people we have no idea about. Like, we might think so-and-so has their life all together, and we never know what battle someone else is facing. And I think just walking through life kindly, and like, I feel like I'm kind, but I'm also truth. Like, I will smack you if I need to. Like, if I believe it's not integrous or something, I will speak up about it. I do try to do it kindly, but sometimes it might not come across as kindly, but it's more because I'd be passionate about how I feel about it. So I think never shrink back from truth. Be bold in speaking truth. Do it in love, you know, as much as you can. But don't shrink back just because it might, you know, make someone's underwear get in a twist, or I don't know what other kind of thing. Because sometimes people are just so righteous in themselves, and yeah, I think God is a God of love first and foremost. And yeah, I constantly am looking at 1 Corinthians 13. You know, it says love does not boast, it keeps no record of wrongs. And I'm like, oh, okay, it looks like I'm keeping a record of wrong. Well, then I need to deal with that. So constantly going before the Father and saying, is there anything in me that you need to take care of? Do it. And it's not an overnight thing usually. It takes time. But trust in his timing. It's a big thing. Trust in his timing and his ways. You know, he tells us his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. And sometimes we think we know better, or we think we can do it better than him. But when we trust in him, we lean into his ways, his timing. He gets it right. Yeah. I don't know what else.
A lot of women that I'm talking to, we do hear, I think, in Christian communities, the trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean on your own understanding, talked about a lot. has been your revelation of the truth of that when you've really been walking through spaces of stress and challenge? Because I think we have a God who's not afraid of difficult emotions.
Yeah.
And I think it's not about pushing them down, but like you've said, sort of bringing them to the Father and not breaking, I guess, that cord of sort of intimacy when we are going through hard things. But would love to hear what's your revelation of that scripture been.
Well, I think that's what I do. I'm honest with him, brutally at times. You know, there's been so many days when I'm just like, I just love you. And there's been days when I'm like, what are you doing to me? I remember a few weeks ago I felt that, and I so strongly felt him say, you shouldn't be asking what am I doing to you, but you should be asking, Father, what are you doing in me during this? What are you teaching me? So trying to look for those little moments, like what are you actually doing inside of me that's not about today and here and now. So I think honesty, he's, you know, he wants to be our best friend. He wants to be the lover of our souls. And if we can't be honest with him, well, who can we be honest with? He knit us together. And I think, I'm not one for pushing aside feelings. I just I bear it all. And there's somewhere in Psalms, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it says, pour your heart out to him, you know? So that's what I do, whether it's, you know, in an hour of focused prayer. I don't do that very often, I must say, like hours of intense focused prayer. It's kind of for me like my everyday just ebb and flow with him. I'll just be like, oh Lord, you know, thank you for that. I think gratitude's a big one. Keep an attitude and a heart full of gratitude, and it helps take your eyes off the difficulty. Not like, it doesn't make it disappear. No. Things, and I think being real as well with other people, because our transparency and the realness that we can carry instead of acting like we've got things together can actually open up other people's hearts to the Father as well. We help them understand that, you know, just because I know God doesn't mean life is perfect or peachy keen all the time. You know, we go through challenges, but when we choose to rise above, but we acknowledge our feelings, but also acknowledge that they are not always the full fact. You know, someone might say something to you and you have an inner dialogue of, oh, that person's mad at me or they're angry, and 9 times out of 10 it has nothing to do with you or with us. I've experienced that before. Like I remember I had a really close guy friend once and he just stopped talking to me and I was like, what the heck? Why would you do that to me? Years later, I found out some things and I realized, oh, it had nothing to do with me. But it held me up for months. And I was like, what the heck? So I think it's just realizing we don't actually know what's on the other side of someone else's life. And maybe what that takes is sitting down and having a cup of coffee with someone, you know, that you might not get on with. Just choose to listen. Maybe they've got some things going on with their health or with family, or we never actually know until we choose to sit down and have a listen. Yeah,
beautiful. So much, I guess, revelation in that. So going to God with our feelings. I know when I was early days of coming into the presence of God and wrestling with church and all of those things, my natural inclination was to hide the stuff that I felt was shameful in my life, and go, no, God, you can have the pretty stuff, but I'll deal with this stuff over here and come back when I'm ready. But I think God does want to embrace all of those parts, and like you said, the layers of an onion work one by one through those paths. I love what you also said about not being afraid to acknowledge and have those tough conversations. I think as women of God, we need to know, not withdraw from the complexity of life, but also lean in. And you said earlier as well, speak truth with love. I think that really plays into that so beautifully. So you mentioned or alluded to it earlier, you're entering quite an exciting sort of new season from obviously deep roots in sort of ministry, youth work, and worship leadership, but you're entering a new season in the sort of beauty and wellness industry. Tell us a little bit more about that. What has drawn you into that space?
Yeah, so for me, my journey, so I'm an independent consultant and just newly promoted district manager with Arbonne, which is a vegan health and wellness company. I turned vegan just over 5 years ago myself. Kind of looked at the world and watched a few documentaries, read a few books about health. And for me, like, I want to eventually, when I have kids and grandkids, I want to be around for a long time for them. And for me personally, I find that this lifestyle just suited my body, suited me as a person. And again, like, what does the effect of what I put in my body have, not only on my body but on the earth? And so we were called to be stewards of this earth. And I don't know, I wouldn't say that I'm a greenie, but I try to, I don't generally have plastic in my house. So I don't know, I've just made little steps. I'm like, I can't do everything, but me as one person can do something to play my part to continue to steward our earth. And that also has to do with what goes on my skin, what I eat, because whatever goes on our skin goes inside of our bloodstreams, and people don't really think about that, And there's a lot of things that are hidden in the health and beauty industry. And I'm passionate just to help people get educated. Not just like, I'm not here to, like, I do sell products, but it's not about that for me. It's about educating people on health and wellness fully, like not just the way you eat, but what actually goes onto your skin, and what, the companies that produce some of our products around the world, like the stuff that you find on the shelf that's cheap. I know that sometimes you don't have money, but it's still important to figure out what's that impact on the full global scale, and your health in general. What else? Even for me as a business, I've been growing my business, and I'm going to have a new girl joining my team this week, and she's a single mom, has a bit of low self-esteem, and I know that this company can be the thing that just pulls her, not that it's going to save her in any way, but it can kind of pull some stuff out of her that maybe she didn't realize she had inside of her. Because that's one thing about our business. It's all about personal and professional development as well. So we listen to a lot of leadership podcasts. We have team meetings. So today at 3:00 New Zealand time, I'll be jumping on to a call similar to this, but with about 30 women in America.
Amazing.
And it's that community as well. Because even last week when I jumped on, it hit me in a fresh way that, I'm part of this beautiful community. Because living overseas from the team that I'm a part of feels sometimes like I'm all alone in this. But now I'm getting to know these women by attending our team calls and really understanding that I'm not alone. Not only, like, I know I'm not alone in life because I have God, but within my business sphere, because I've got people around my town that are also doing the same business, but we're not in the same team, And so for me, this industry is about helping women, and eventually I want to open a youth refuge home and have a youth mentoring organization. So that's where my sights are. Yes, like it'll be awesome to just have money and have a cool, I'm believing for my Mercedes. I'm going to get to the top and have a Mercedes Benz, which is cool, but it's not about that for me. That will represent the many lives that I've been able to help change and touch. Because for me, I found Arbonne when I was in my early 20s. I had little to no self-esteem because I had really bad skin acne and just felt really ugly, and I would literally cry every day. And so for me, it's more about that. Like, I want to be able to have a boot full of acne kits to hand out to people, or our health and wellness kits, I want to be able to have this stuff so that I can give to others, because it's so important. My sponsor was able to help purchase 8 mopeds for women in Africa because of even little purchases. Like, my beautiful friend bought a mascara. Well, that helps those women in Africa because it helps my sponsor. So just knowing that what I'm a part of is so much bigger than just me as well. And, it's going to help fund the dreams that I have for others. So I keep saying I'm building an empire for others. It's not about myself. Like, yes, it will, in terms, some people might be like, well, look at your life. It's going to benefit you. Yes, it might. But it's benefiting me so that I can benefit others. The youth that I work with, or the women that are going to be able to be find themselves, women that can find themselves in the middle of this amazing business, and people who never thought they could have their own business. So for me, it's about that. It's about helping women see who they are. And, sometimes a little bit of mascara and lipstick can do that. But it's about so much more than that. Yeah. About an opportunity to change your life, to change someone's life.
Love that. I think there's something really powerful in that, about really connecting with a why that's greater and bigger than ourselves, that propels us forward. So what's important for you to be role modeling as a Christian woman in business?
Well, I want to be a person of integrity. So my word, like when I'm even chatting with clients, because most of my business is done through social media or on my phone. And I want to continue to be present, though, in places where I am. So that's a big thing for me. Yes, my business is important, but I also have a life. Like, I also have people that I need to meet up with, or people that I need to see. Being fully transparent with it all, because I had someone recently be like, oh, well, you should show me your paycheck with Arbonne. I'm like, why? I don't ask to see your pay slip. So just continuing to rise above people's opinions. And I said it a few weeks ago. I'm like, well, their opinion of me or this business isn't going to pay a bill for me or help me open my youth shelter, will it? No. So it's just constantly rising above the stuff. For me, as a Christian woman in business, I think continuing to keep my eyes on the prize, that it's about other people and not for personal gain. I love that's in Corinthians somewhere. It says, do nothing out of selfish, or Ephesians, do nothing out of selfish ambition or personal gain. But how can I do things that are for other people in all areas of my life? It's not just in business. It's in every area of how I live my life. Am I being integrous? Am I being faithful with what God gives me? Am I being a good steward? And sometimes that stewardship is with people. If he brings people along my business, am I leading people the way that they need to be led? And so that's me being on calls every day, like listening to personal growth and development, to grow myself as a leader, to be in the Word so that I can be a leader that's got godly principles. And like you said, wisdom to me is so important. Because if we have all kinds of things in the world, but we don't have wisdom or we don't have love, well, yeah, I'd rather not. So continuing to be in the Word. In James, God tells us if we lack wisdom to ask him, because he gives it to us generously without finding fault. And so, for me personally, that's probably something in my finances I want to get better at. That's a challenge to me personally in my own personal finances. I want to be a better steward of how I spend my money. Like, I hate when I go on my bank account and I'm like, where did my money go? And it might be at the cute cafe around the corner, or it might be, most likely my money's gone on Arbonne. But for me, that's building my business. It's building myself, I'm a product of my product. And so the next few months are, continuing to level up, not only in my business, but in my personhood, in my own wisdom, in my own personal journey of growth and development. So reading books that are going to further my journey in that. With worship ministry, leveling up by continuing my own vocal exercises throughout the days, even when I'm not singing. Just being a steward of the gifts God's given us. I'm going to be writing songs more over this season. I keep saying that, but I did sit down at the piano yesterday.
Very good.
I need to just continue. Continue. Not try to start a bunch of new stuff, but continue and keep taking one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, one day at a time. Yeah, continuing.
Beautiful, which goes back to that theme of resilience. So just to recap for our beautiful women that are listening, some principles of how to be an effective Christian woman of business are integrity, transparency, which doesn't mean showing people everything, but being authentic, rising above things. I think often that can be the challenge of a leader and an influencer, that you are breaking new ground. Putting living a life above bigger than or above yourself, being faithful and employing the principle of stewardship into your life, and rising up or leveling up as a powerful leader. And I think that's a great thought for our women who are listening to this broadcast to go away and have a think about where are you leading people to. So the women who are looking at whatever role or sphere you're in, someone is watching the model of your life, and where are you leading people to? What would they be seeing? I think that's a beautiful challenge to us all. And ultimately, hopefully we're leading people to Jesus, that there is something different that we bring.
Hello? Oh, there you are. I was like,
So Roxi, before we end, would love to hear a little bit about what you are most excited for in the future.
Yeah, I'm so excited about obviously my business and the lives I'm going to change with our youth here in New Zealand. We have the highest rates of suicide in the world in the region where I live, which is called Northland Titai Tokoro. And I'm passionate about seeing that number go down. Just last week or the week before, we lost 3 young people in our region to suicide. And I think helping especially young girls and the boys understand who they are, that they don't have to be gangsters, they don't have to be cool, or they don't have to be someone else to fit in. I think that's a huge thing. So I'm excited about one thing in the next few months I want to do is put my idea to paper. I want to be connected with the right people to help me put my idea that I have inside of my head down on paper, kind of like a business plan or organization plan for what I want to see in the future with my dream. And it's called Not On My Watch New Zealand.
So powerful.
So yeah, you can find it on Instagram and Facebook. I did start those social media platforms. It hasn't, I don't know, I haven't done a lot with it yet, but I've started it.
It's putting a stake in the ground, isn't it? Love that.
And that happened because one of my young people I was working with reached out to me and said that he didn't want to live anymore. And so it just lit a super big fire under me to get something started and get something out there. And yeah, I'm so passionate about one day having my own family, and I want to foster children and adopt children, and because especially with teenagers, they're the ones that no one really wants, and it's not easy. I can vouch for that. It's not easy working with them sometimes, but I want to be a place that can open my home to them. I want to have a home one day that I can open to other people. Just like even where I live today, this amazing couple from our church has opened their home to me. Because I'm in the middle of work and, in the middle of being jobless, but yeah, just in a season at the moment myself that's quite humbling and uncomfortable, but being able to have that option one day for people as well, that's something that excites me. And even having my own family one day where a lot of stuff that's happened in my bloodline stops with me. I'm excited to put, like you said, to me, I feel like I'm a stake in the ground of someone who's just gone after what I believe God has for my life. And I always have said that I want to live out the purposes of God in my generation, like it's said about David, and that he's someone who had a heart after God. That's what I hope, first and foremost, that people see about my life. If someone comes up to me and was like, oh, I didn't even have a clue that you're a Christian, that would just wreck me, So I hope that my life speaks about him. And continually, the continual journey of laying my soul before him there, I've been calling it gut-wrenching, soul-emptying surrender, where literally every single part is laid bare before the King of Kings, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just trusting him with that and knowing that he's got my best interest. I used to think it was so funny that I have this, trust in him, that he saved my soul for eternity, but he promised in his word that he would also take care of my everyday needs. And when we, you know, don't trust that he can do that, how can we actually trust him to, you know, be there for us when we're no longer on this earth? So I think it's just a constant reminder to trust him no matter what. You know, like you said it earlier, you know, trusting in the Lord with all your heart and not leaning on your own understanding, on human understanding, because human understanding in many areas of my life would not, people wouldn't get it. People don't get it, even though, you know, even in church sometimes, like, how do you, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I sometimes look back and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm alive. I don't know how I'm okay. I don't know how, you know, I am the person I am. It's only by the grace of God. Like, that's the only thing I can put it to. Yeah.
What a beautiful place to sort of start to wrap up, that it is only through the grace of our grace of God that I think our lives can be fruitful and be knitted into a picture greater than ourselves. And Roxi, just the fragrance of your life is so beautiful, that you're a woman who does put God at the center, always has, and just it's such an exciting season for you of becoming, of leveling up. And I think the influence of your life, well, it already is great, but it's going to be even greater. And I just honor you. I honor no public journey of worth is built on something that hasn't been massive commitment and I guess faithfulness to the journey behind the scenes. So I honor you for all the work you've done in the secret place. I honor you for just your beautiful heart for people, that just is such a beautiful expression of the love you've received from God, and just a bless and honor your sort of life and hopes and dreams for the future. And thank you so much for breaking open a little bit of that for us to learn some beautiful wisdom and lessons from your journey. So how can our community connect with you post this conversation? Would love to direct our women to keep in contact. You mentioned there's probably two sides to the spaces you're working in at the moment, your wellness business, and also Not on My Watch as well.
Yeah. So you can find Not on My Watch NZ on Instagram, and as well as Facebook. I think it's just Not on My Watch on Facebook. And a third thing I've been working on as well is Kia Ora Vegan, which is like just a little passion side project about my vegan food and my journey with that as well. So you can look that up also. But my Instagram is Roxi, I think, .arbonne, so ARBONNEICDM. So Roxi.arbonneicdm. If you want to catch up with me on Instagram or on Facebook, Roxi Ansari. But Jo can tag, I think she's tagged me in a post anyway. So feel free to send me a message. If you need prayer for anything, like I love to pray as well. So if you need some prayer for anything, send me a message.
Amazing. Well, Roxi, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited for your call this afternoon, for leading your team, bringing another woman along with you on the journey. And I know it's just going to be the start of many. So thank you so much again for joining us today. And thank you, beautiful women, for tuning in. I hope you were so blessed and strengthened by this conversation, and look forward to speaking to you soon.